important role in asking questions not only about what have you done with my wage payment or what have you done with my basic cards that should be issued or my basic right to have a teacher in the school, but it's also raising very uncomfortable questions for the state by saying, why are you defining a policy where I am displaced? Why are you defining a policy which you are not discussing with me? So the entire National Advisory Council's role is to look at social sector policy and insist on a pre-legislative debate. Let me also make a few things clear. What is a pre-legislative debate? Pre-legislative consultation and debate is before it goes into the government. And that's all the NAC can do. Because once it goes into government, the government department, the cabinet, the law ministry and parliament take over. But before that, at least the benchmark of what might be a people's issue can be tabled. I'm saying might be. Because even within the NAC, there are issues which are not settled as the campaigns would like. I represent a campaign, but I'm only one member of 14 members. If you disregard the chairperson, we are 14 members of the NAC. My voice and my opinion may not and is sometimes not carried through. In which case, in a democratic setup of 14 people, my voice is suppressed, I'm vetoed, then I'm out. And whatever dilution takes place within the NAC goes to the government of India, further diluted and destroyed. Look at the National Food Security Bill, the travesty of what has happened to that bill since it first began to be debated. So I'm just saying that one understands that social sector issues need to be discussed and debated, but it is a pre-legislative process. We are now struggling in the National Campaign for People's Right to Information to make it participatory. We have now started a public debate that all issues concerning all policies should be publicly debated before it goes into the process of legislation. The process of legislation is important. Government must look at the law. They are paid to look at it. Government servants sit there to do it. It's their business, they must work. I'm not saying I'll take over their role. The cabinet must look at it. It must be responsible, it must look at it. We are saying the law ministry must look at it. But we must know what they're doing. We are not saying they shouldn't. We are saying we should know what they are doing. And finally it should go to parliament, because after all that parliament is the basic structure of a democracy that gives me the right to speak out against the Prime Minister, the right to speak out against any system of governance that I dislike, to go and protest. It's this parliamentary democracy that gives me the right, and this parliamentary democracy will therefore have to remain to give me this right, but it will have to function properly. That institution should become a people's institution and be perceived by us as our institution instead of a government organization. That's why the debate on the standing committee was so important to us. The standing committee is a parliamentary committee. It's not the committee of a ruling party. A parliamentary committee, which means that every single member of parliament, every single party which is a member of parliament, has the right to send someone to the standing committee. Because of the standing committee, the Right to Information Act, which was mauled around by the cabinet and so on during the NAC, first period of the NAC, which was sent to the government in 2005, 153 amendments were made in the standing committee because of testimonies of various people from the public domain, including the NCPRI, but others as well. Even retired civil servants and judges, etc., went before the standing committee for the right to information. 153 amendments were made to make the law a powerful law. So today if someone says we will not have a standing committee, we naturally disagree, because we feel the standing committee is a people's organization and should remain for testimonies of people. This is also misinterpreted by people who have qualified it. But a standing committee is my organization, and democracy and parliamentary democracy will survive in India. The standing committee has to exist. You are one state which threw out the SEZ. Do you know that the SEZ was not sent to the standing committee, and many of us made a point of it to fight with government, saying that no law which is as important as the SEZ law could have gone without going to a standing committee. So let us understand democratic institutions, the role of democratic institutions, and our relationship and our engagement with them. And Right to Information has made even people sitting in a village understand the role of these organizations because of what it has done to their specific demands. But there is also a general and generic role of these various systems in parliamentary democracy. the action against corruption has also become much higher profile after the RTI. We have hundreds of cases of people protesting against corruption. And rather than one major thing which also makes an impact on television and all of us, the more important thing is the million mutinies which Naipaul talked about. P.S. Naipaul has written a book called A Million Mutinies, which he says India's greatest contribution is that it's not one mutiny, but there are a million mutinies. That in every village of India or everywhere there is oppression, people protest, and that's how the wheel turns. Because a mechanism of governance is not one major wheel, but many wheels that turn, and then the big wheel turns. So the big wheel must be present. Yes, we must have high profile agitations, but they must be supported by smaller protests, and that RTI is made possible because people go and ask for information, and that information then makes it move. So what you project, or the media projects, is Aruna Roy, is nonsense, because Aruna Roy is one voice. Behind that are millions of people, and I see power in those people, not in myself. I don't see power in the NAC. I don't see power in the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. I see power in the people, and I've always seen power in the people. And that is why for me, the RTI campaign was possible, and for me specifically in the NKSS, the relationship that we are powerful, but we have to establish that we are powerful. We have got people to recognize that we are powerful. We are already powerful. That power has to find a channel and a method of expression. Because if we do this, and we only see power in the NAC, and we see only power in the government that exists, we are actually nullifying the power that Gandhiji established in the alternative power of other politics that defines the real India. So therefore I believe that my staying out of power or in power is determined, my role and my efficacy is determined to what I perceive as the real power of the people. And therefore I argue that the use of information has tilted the balance towards the others. So Bharat has come up a little more in the profile of visibility than before. But what has been the result? People have asked for information and have disturbed the status quo. A friend of mine sits here whose car was burned. Just showed me a photograph as I came in because he asked uncomfortable questions. Burned or broken, and his wife is living in terror. There are millions of such people today in this country who ask for information, who are attacked. Some have been killed, but many have been attacked. A Dalit in Rajasthan asked for information, all his 4 limbs were broken. All he did was ask for information on NREGA. Niyamat Ansari's life was taken in Jharkhand because he asked for information on NREGA in his village and exposed the BDO who had really mismanaged and defrauded lakhs of rupees of government, which went into pockets of many people. Niyamat Ansari was killed 2 days later. Now there are many such cases. A young woman was killed in Bhopal the other day. Now the killing of people as a result of exposing information says 2 things to us. Is it a success and challenge, or is it the failure of RTI? I would say that it's the failure of the system to protect its people. But it is a success of the RTI that each single person has been able to challenge the entire system. But what RTI activists and systems will now have to understand that the third category, we usually have whistleblowers fall within government systems, and we have human rights defenders who fall outside the human rights, who are people outside the system who fight for human rights. But a third category is emerging, which is because of participatory democracy, we have all got involved in the issue of governance, and therefore we have become defenders of one sort and we have become whistleblowers of another sort. So we combine the whistleblowing as well as the defending of rights. So therefore as civil rights, human rights activists, we now need to evolve a system, a mechanism under the Whistleblowers Act which will give us special protection because our predicament is different, our location is different, or a new act to protect our lives and our welfare is an issue that is currently under discussion, and the NCPRI has been debating this since 2010, and in this issue many things have happened and much remains to be done. The international image of the RTI has been enormous. Before I go to it, I want to add one small little comment. That if I had to answer the PM on his concern about his bureaucrats, I would say I'm much more concerned about the lives of RTI activists. What have you done for RTI activists? You are continuously talking about your civil servants who have some discomfort. But we are losing our lives. What have you done for that? That's far more important. So, having answered him, I'll go back to the international image. Wherever we have gone, occasionally abroad, the Indian RTI movement is held in extraordinary esteem. The government simply does not recognize its own value, I would say. Because when they see India, they don't see me, MKSS, they don't see NCPRI, they don't see any campaign. They see India as a nation. Those of us who are jingoistic and so full of national pride, we should pressurize the jingoistic political parties also to recognize that in one area, and without question, India is right on the top. And that is on the issue of transparent governance and on the issue of right to information, transparency. We lead the world in the way we've dealt with information. And that's something which is a great matter of pride for India and which unfortunately the Prime Minister didn't emphasize enough yesterday. I don't think the US is important, but when Obama came, he talked about the right to information. When somebody else comes, they talk about the right to information. In any international gathering, India is recognized, especially above every other country, for having made extraordinary progress with the way it has dealt with the information regime. And I think commissioners, government, activists, all of us alike should be proud of it. Because it is an extraordinary thing that in a country like this we have achieved something that is simple, significant and really universal. And I think that credit goes to all of us. I think right to information, wars and participatory democracy are to establish India's plurality. Differences in thought, differences in perspective, differences in ways in which we look at corruption in solution to corruption. Corruption we all see the same way. But what is the solution to corruption? Corruption is an ethical issue, nobody will disagree. We'll all agree, yes, of course, there should be no corruption. But the moment you say X is the only way of solving corruption, many people will say X may not be, B or Y or Z may be the means of solving corruption. At that point, we can't become Bush and say either you agree with me, then you are anti-corruption, but if you disagree with me, you're for corruption. That debate trivializes the RTI efforts to bring plurality and maturity into democratic debate and pushes us back into the simplistic paradigm of not being able to decide, because you can't then have nuances and shades, which is what makes democracy run. If you don't have nuances and shades, democracy fades. I'll just end with a very favorite quotation of mine of a man called Jeremy Cronin, who is a poet, a writer and a political activist of South Africa. He's the leader of the Communist Party, but in his political writings, he says somewhere, what is democracy, he asks, and he says, democracy is speaking truth to power. Democracy is speaking truth to power, making truth powerful and power truthful. But let me also add a little comment on it, that it will have to be the truth I perceive. Thank you very much.
Wide range of issues. Some of these issues are going to be taken in the today's seminar. May I now invite Mr. Colin Curry, the trustee of Media Information and Communication Center, to formally propose the vote of thanks.
Srimati Aruna Roy, Shri Nikhil De, Srimati Nandini Sai, Shri Rajeshwar Dayar, the media ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the International Center, Media Information Communication Center of India, and Frederick Ebert Stiftung, I convey our sincere thanks firstly to our two well-known and renowned activists and the people who have been instrumental in making a change for the betterment of our lives through their unending and undeterred hard work towards the bringing about of the RTI Act. Dear Aruna and Nikhil, thank you for taking time on your busy schedule and accepting our invitation to be here. It's always a pleasure to host you. We are the chosen few honored lot to have two architects of the RTI law to interact with, discuss and conclude with suggestions and recommendations. I feel sorry for a lot of our activists who were unable to attend for whatever reasons. Media Information Communication Center of India has organized a series of seminars on good governance, and this seminar is part of the same. It is with the constant support of the International Center, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, that we find success in organizing and executing these seminars. Media Information Communication of Center of India would like to thank the dynamic director of the International Center, Nandini Sahay, who is also honorary director for Media Information and Communication Center of India. To Arjun Halanka, who always behind the scenes but does some great work for us, the International Center and all its staff, our support and collaborators Friedrich Ebert Stiftung and Sri Rajeshwar Dayal, Senior Advisor to Friedrich Ebert Stiftung India, all the co-chairpersons and speakers at all the working sessions, the media and all our guests. We wish this